So hello fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 6455463728. And some people are so worried about the government manipulating them and their privacy and so on that they seem to ignore the fact that everybody in their lives, including themselves, is manipulating somebody. We are surrounded by people who are manipulating us, and we don't raise as big a fuss, or people complain more about it than complain more about the government than about that. Anyway, who am I? I'm Earthling 64 yada yada yada. And why don't I just say that my name is Murphy Brown? Because I don't want to. Because I'd like to be able to say whatever I feel like, and still, I don't really. I am college educated, I have an MBA, I have a computer science degree. I have traveled a bit of the world, I've seen a couple of things. I've done some things that I never thought that I would get the chance to do, or that were too difficult for me. And yet I still have. And I have a wide variety of interests, which is what this piece and my channel is about. So, manipulation. Why are we so worried about the government? If you are married, if you became married, if you have kids, we all have parents, most of us have a boss. And all of these people and more, friends, peer pressure, all of these people are manipulating us. We are surrounded by people who, if we didn't do what they expect, what they want from us, they would disappear. And if they thought that they can get more from us by doing X, Y, or Z, they probably would and probably are. And yet, many people are on, soapboxes around the world trying to drum up fear of the government, when in many instances, a lot of us are members of the government that we are afraid of. It's like people say, well, not people, I think John Oliver has said that, and I guess Phil DeFranco as well, they've indicated that local elections for many people, whether it's the mayor, whether it is if you have the power to elect your chief of police or other elected officials on a local level, they often matter much more. And they matter much more to most people than the president or the prime minister, if you elect a prime minister, or any one of these distant people who, yes, they have very, very broad powers, but most of the things that affect your life, in fact, most of the time that you spend is really predominantly within a 5-mile radius of your house. And the leaders of countries, even the governors of states, or whoever is the person, directly below that, if you're in a state or a county or something like that, they don't really, might not affect you quite that much as your mayor or people in a local election within a 5-mile radius of your house. I mean, think of if it's a pothole that's within a 5-mile radius of your house, and those people are elected officials. And I think I'm kind of detouring a bit from the fact that one's friends, especially when one is a kid, and younger. And I guess maybe people are more in touch with themselves more, or maybe you don't have as many friends when you're an older person and you're watching the news a lot and you're not going out, and you have, I guess, settled with one or however many number of partners in your life. Yeah, I guess that's why these things seem so much more important when you're younger, because you're normally with a lot of other people. But young people completely get it. That the people, that their friends, that their siblings, that their family members are much, much more influential in their lives than anybody that they would elect by going to some polling station and, choosing. There are some things that are, most things, I imagine, most things that elected officials do, and even people who are not elected, are the same, regardless of whether it's a conservative or a liberal or a whatever. There are things that need to be done, like people need to be hired in order to get rid of the garbage. Conservative or liberal, you probably need to get rid of the garbage. The water pipes need to be repaired. The electrical service, it needs to work. If a tree downs a line or something, that's important to you. And at the same time, let's say in my life, the people who take advantage of you, they might be your parents, they might be your kids, they might be your siblings. Those relationships matter much, much more than any amount of time that you might waste giving your view about anything political. And I guess all of us know that, but somehow it only gets into a discourse when we're talking about, marriage counseling, or I guess, is it parent and child counseling? I don't know. Or just mental health counseling, like to see a therapist. All of those relationships are so much more important and are often not fair. They often, and yet we just go about our day until something breaks, like if it's our marriage and we get into a huge argument, or if it's a kid and the kid has been, because of parental neglect, let's say, you don't spend enough time with your kids and you just want to throw money at them, they might be taking advantage of your spending. They might be going from one particular habit or school activity to the other. 1 minute they're playing tennis, the next minute they're playing soccer or baseball or cricket or anything like that. I guess so many of our relationships have to do with money and people taking advantage of relatives and friends with respect to money. And actually, our whole financial health is affected by friends and spouses and siblings and parents. And I suppose an interesting part of this whole thing is that there's still a dichotomy between personal and, let's say, public life, where we can talk to each other about what the government should or shouldn't do, but we can't really talk to each other about our parents or our siblings or our friends. I mean, the most part that you find anybody discussing topics like that might be in a Dear Abby column or something like that. People are going to be really reluctant to do what I guess they assume that therapists should just do. Go to therapy. And all therapists are created equal. Shouldn't there just simply be some general guidelines that we discuss and we talk about? I guess that in that respect, it's a lot easier to blame and hate and give your position on the government, because everybody can agree that the government sucks. And it's a lot more potentially damaging to people's relationship with whoever they're talking to if they give advice about personal relationships, because that can always come back to bite you. Like if you give a guy advice about his wife or his son or his parents or his kids, he might not appreciate it, and that might be the end of your relationship. But if you give your opinion as to what the government should do, it's really very easy, because none of y'all know the government. None of y'all know anybody. For most people, don't know anybody who is in any position of power in the government, because number one, there aren't that many people to begin with in significant positions of power. That's how, the pyramid structure works. There's a few at the top and a lot at the bottom. So it's a lot easier to talk about remedies, possible things that can make these things that are not really important, talking about them actually. I guess in a way it's a little bit more like talking about the weather, and nothing too deep or too tangible or too potentially harmful to our personal relationships. Or even just, even if you are somebody who's like, Dr. not Oz, I can't remember this guy's name. And that's another thing too, isn't it? The realm of giving advice about relationships, these people who matter more, is really supposed to be to mental health care professionals, I suppose. And nobody wants to be blamed for if something goes badly. And everybody would say, well, this is not your area of know-how, so you probably shouldn't be talking about it. Or it could be very much that we do talk a lot about this. I don't think so. About the people in our lives and the relationships in our lives and the structure in our lives that matters and affects us much, much more. And I guess at the end of the day, what I really meant to say is we have a lot more to fear from the people in our lives, even from our boss, from people in the neighborhood, friends, family, parents, siblings, relatives, whoever. All of these people, we have a lot more to fear from them than from a Republican government or from a Democratic government. It really doesn't matter quite as much. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, but at the same time, we get into so many arguments about things that we can't do anything about, or we can only do something about it every 4 years or 2 years or 5 years or 6 years or whatever the term is for the government that's in power, however often those elections are. And like I said, many of those decisions are the same regardless of who is in power. There are some decisions that would be monumentally different, but by and large they don't affect our lives as much as the manipulation and deceit and just pressure, peer pressure, sibling pressure, whatever pressure that we have in our lives. And we don't really, I feel like right now, maybe I'm grasping at straws. I feel like I don't recall us talking about those more important relationships that often. Anyway, that's me talking round and round in circles. But feel free to like, dislike, comment, subscribe, share. None of those things. But I would advise, or I would ask, that you do the same as you would like done unto you. Have a good one. Peace.